Danny Bateman is a instructor at the Concordia University of Edmonton. Using entertaining anecdotes and actionable content, he has delivered over 300 PD sessions throughout Alberta. His expertise comes from 34 years as an inclusive education teacher and consultant. He loves the outdoors and riding unicycles.
Wow, that was great. Thanks, Cody. So welcome, everyone. It's great to be able to share with you some of my ideas, and I've got a lot of them. And so we'll get rolling as right now. I have several goals for this session. First of all, I'm hoping that you'll really gain a better understanding of how you can help these struggling and reluctant learners, and discover some new strategies that will engage them, and consider all kinds of learning strategies. So there's teaching strategies, which is my goal number 2, but there's learning strategies, which is goal number 3, and then accommodations that can help these struggling learners. Last but not least, and most importantly, I think, is I want to make your life less stressful. If that's possible, I don't know. I hope it is. Let's find out. Are you stressed? I need everyone to look carefully at the screen, because I'm going to show you a picture of 2 dolphins, and it's quite straightforward. This is a stress test. We're going to find out if you're stressed or not. If you see any differences between these 2 dolphins, you're feeling a little bit of stress. If they just look identical, you're fine. I think we all have stress, especially as teachers. We're working with students that are reluctant learners, or they're struggling learners. And what do we do to get them involved and to help them learn? Well, I have divided these strategies into 4 categories, and you'll notice that these categories actually coincide with the 4 goals I just went over. The first category are strategies where we can connect and support. Another group of strategies is universal strategies. Now, what do I mean by universal strategies? Here's what I found. I found that as I worked with struggling and reluctant learners, there were things that just worked better. If that makes any sense. You found the same thing. I know you have. You know, what works and what doesn't work. And here's the interesting thing. I found the things that work well with struggling and reluctant learners, hey, they also work well with all students, right? And so that's what I mean by universal strategies. And it's a little kind of nod to UDL. UDL is fantastic, multiple means of all kinds of representation and all these different things. UDL is fantastic. I highly recommend it, but I'm kind of taking a UDL approach that is a little more broad. Now, then I mentioned there's another category, and that is specific learning strategies and accommodations. This is student-centered, right? So it's kind of specific for your struggling learner, not for everyone. Whereas number 2 strategies are for everyone. Now, I promised less stress. Well, I'm going to give a few tips on classroom management. I mean, that is where a lot of our stress comes in. And I also believe that a lot of our stress as teachers comes from these struggling students taking up brain space, right? I mean, I can't count the number of times, and you've had the same experience, I know, where you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I hate to admit it, but for me, it's usually to pee. Anyway, and then I'm laying there in bed, I'm going, oh no, what am I going to do about Brenda? I really want to help her, and she just isn't doing anything. By the way, I did have a student who was an expert at doing nothing, like absolutely nothing. All right, so I'm hopeful that all of these, well, I have 31 of these strategies that I'm going to try to get through all of them, and you use a lot of them. But the ones that you use, maybe you could use more. And the ones that are new to you, I will highly, highly recommend a few. And we're going to start with one right now. The very first one is under this connecting and supporting category. And oh, just a minute. No, we need to know the principle here. Here's what I posit. I posit that Struggling students just need to feel understood, supported, competent, and independent. And this comes from a lot of research. I'm not here to quote you the theory and the research, but I really believe in this principle. And I teach it in one of my other sessions in a little more theoretical way. But this session, this is all about the strategies to help them feel understood, supported, competent, and independent. What strategies are those? Well, under connecting and supporting, my very first strategy is the one that I feel the strongest about. I call it my number one strategy. And some of you do this and many of you don't. But what I like to do is on Monday morning, I give each student an opportunity to disclose with an answer to a check-in question. I call it check-in. This is check-in, but we have lots of different names for it. And I like Monday morning because my check-in question is usually, what was a highlight from your weekend? Now, as you progress in grade, and I've taught at all levels, as you progress in grade level, the answers to what was a highlight from your weekend actually get shorter and shorter and shorter. Starting with grades, well, K through 3, you kind of have to have a timer. And you have to say, okay, yeah, I think we've heard enough. Good, thanks. The bell just rang. Let's go on to the next person. Now, the way I do this is I have a little stress ball, and I'm sure you all have these. I mean, this is one of my favorites. I have a few here. This is Gertrude. I have Gertrude. I also have Batman, who isn't a stress ball. Batman's just a tiny little stuffy, and you could use stuffies as well. But I have like a pencil from the ATA Beginning Teachers Conference, right? Like I also have a little stress ball globe, I have a brain from the ATA library, they're all around. And I have a collection of 54. So how do I use these stress balls? Well, what I do, all of my students know that if they have the stress ball in their hand, they are the only ones supposed to speak. So I use it in lots of different ways. Sometimes I'll have them throw it around the room because they can't really injure each other. I tell them not to throw at each other, to throw to each other. And then as soon as they get it, then we can brainstorm. They can give an idea about something. And so I'll use it for open-ended questions with brainstorming. But every Monday morning, I have them pass it around, and I give them the opportunity to just pass it on if they don't have something they want to share from their weekend. Now, I just can't tell you the benefits to doing this tiny, simple thing. And those of you who've done it know it just builds a community. At first, I found lots of students not knowing what to say and just passing it. And then as the weeks grow on, they begin to know each other and be comfortable with each other. And as a teacher, I get to know them and they get to know each other. And it sounds like a waste of time. It is not a waste of time. All right. As a matter of fact, about halfway through my 34-year career, I got a position at a school called L.Y. Cairns School. And that is a school in Edmonton of 500 students ages 12 through 18. Now, these 500 students ages 12 through 18 are almost all of them are at about a grade 1 or 2 level, because every single one of these 500 students is coded with a cognitive disability. And usually a moderate cognitive disability, sometimes mild, sometimes severe, but kind of a cognitive disability where they're functioning K to 3 grades in their academics and their reading and their math, but they're junior high and high school age. And what an interesting experience that was, to go to that school and have a curriculum that's modified. So I wasn't tied to any specific curriculum. Well, that gave me the time to do this every day. And so I started passing around a little stress ball every day at the very beginning of class, and I would have an open-ended question. Sometimes it would be about what we learned last class. Sometimes it would be about kind of an anticipatory set, as Madeline Hunter calls it, or front-end loading. I would ask a question about what we would be discussing that day. It would need to be open-ended enough for them to know, so to have something to contribute. But I really highly recommend this activity at least once a week. And if you have done it, you know how valuable it can be. All right. Well, a lot of this first objective of connecting and supporting students is learning about them, learning about our struggling students. I have found that there are so many ways to learn about them, from past teachers, from IPPs, from CUME files, from parents. But the number one source is really them, you know. And I love what Joe Bauer had to say. He passed away 2016, and this is how old he was when he passed away. I actually don't know his age, but this was taken right before he passed. Want to collect data on how children are learning? Know them, watch them, listen to them, talk with them, sit with them, be with them. I'll never forget my first couple of years of teaching. I learned that some of these struggling students are fantastic at never revealing themselves, right? They just are quiet. And then I'll have an assessment, and I will do an assessment, and I'll just be shocked. I'll be like, but I thought you were getting it and you're not getting it. What's going on here? And then I would watch. I would do what Joe says. You know, I'd get to know them, watch them, talk to them, listen to them. And I'd find out that they were experts at looking like they knew what was going on. Right? We all have students like that. And we've got to kind of watch for them and get to them. They would there would be an assignment, and they would look around and they just kind of watch what everybody else was doing, and then they try to mimic what everybody else was doing. They try to stay in the background, and that can be problematic with accommodations. Many of these struggling students really don't want to be singled out. And then there's those who do want to be singled out. They use their behavior to as a tool to not do their work, you know, as they use their behavior to cover up their struggles, basically. All right, so I have a few strategies. As I said, 31, and we've only done 2. We've done this one. Learn as much as you can about them. And the passing the ball every Monday with an open-ended question, doesn't have to be a highlight from your weekend, it can just be an open-ended question. That is a great way to get to learn about them, right? Now, when I first started teaching at this school called L.Y. Cairns, I found that I had to make the directions for what they were doing simple and explicit in detail, and I had to do it auditorily and visually, and then often I had to repeat it. And then I would check for understanding. And so really, we do all of these things, but what I found is I needed to take more time to explain what it is that they are supposed to be doing. Another strategy is to find things that they are good at. I am a big believer in strength-based learning, finding their strengths. And the brain research bears this out. The brain research says our brain is constantly looking for where to attach this new information, right? And then last but not least, provide them with lots of choice. Now, this is this independence piece. They need to feel like they have some control in their life, like they can do things. So to help them feel competent, to help them feel supported, to help them feel understood, is really a significant step. And under this first category of really supporting and connecting. So supporting and connecting. I know I say, you know, they need to feel understood, supported, competent, independent, but it's all about supporting and connecting. You have ideas about supporting and connecting. So if you will write them down in the chat box, Cody will monitor them, and also you can look at each other's comments under this first category of supporting and connecting with the students. All right, struggling students, in the literature and in documentation, we often hear them referred to as students with diverse learning needs. Well, I think we all have diverse learning needs, if that makes sense. I think every one of our students has diverse learning needs. And I really think that's an important understanding. As a matter of fact, in my mind, those of us who struggled in school make great teachers because we can relate, if that makes any sense. On to number 2, universal teaching strategies. Well, which practical teaching strategies work well for struggling students? And please, in the chat box, I haven't had a chance to read it. Cody, do you see anything really great in that chat box that we should share before I go on to category 2?
One of the comments that jumped out at me with the connecting with students was doing attendance through daily questions. So they have to answer a question, and that's how they know they're here or not. I thought that was really cool.
I like that. That is fantastic. Anytime you can give every student, somebody said to give the student a voice, anytime you can give a chance for every student to contribute something, it is gold. That is gold, right? They contribute something once and hey, it was okay. And then they'll do it again and they'll do it again. And pretty soon you create this atmosphere. All right, so what are these universal strategies that I'm talking about? Well, what works well for everybody? Let me just fly through a few. Talk less. That's the first one. I say it in a little politer way. Try to be the guide on the side rather than the sage on the stage. So I mentioned my my position at LY Cairns. I found that I could not talk for very long, or the students were gone, and so I had to have my instruction in short little bits. And I began to, I cut my instruction in half, and then I cut it in half again. And then I visited other teachers in that school. They were doing the same thing. They would give a brief set of instructions, and then they would allow the students to work, and then they would provide that one-on-one. We all know that struggling students can benefit from us giving them one-on-one. The problem is having the time and the energy to give them the one-on-one they really need. Well, that can be done by instructing less. I heard it said this way: we need, in our school system, we need less teaching and more learning. All right, so tip number 1. Tip number 2 for teaching strategies: find out what they already know about something. As I mentioned earlier, the brain is attaching new information to old. Front load. Those of you who just got out of university know about front loading. I didn't learn about front loading till I went back to teach university, to teach teachers how to teach. All right. Peer teaching is gold. Why? It's a safe environment. So you take your smartest student and you pair them with your struggling student or your reluctant learner, and you ask that smart student for their help, to help you as the teacher. Can you please, when you finish your work, can you please go over and help Johnny with his? It is gold. And those of you who've done it, you know how valuable that is. Criterion-based instruction. Now, I had the luxury of this at LY Cairns, and it is not a luxury we have, but I know in grade, well, let's just say grade 3, you're learning the times tables. Well, I had grade 7 students, 8 students, 9 students that didn't know the times tables, right? And so you get these students that really need the basics, and you've got to back up. And I would do my best to actually back up and teach them past, concepts from past years that they did not have yet. And really, that's what the struggling student has to do. And that's the luxury we had at LY Cairns, is we actually had 4 grade 7 classes, and they were in homogeneous reading groups. And so the first class, they couldn't read. The second class, they were at a K, well, we'll say 1 level, 2 level, 3 level of reading kind of idea, right? All right. Now, anytime you can do anything spicy, they love it. The brain research tells us spice up your lessons. Well, how do you spice up your lessons? Well, be creative. You know that anytime you've been creative, that has been gold. The brain is looking for the novel. The brain is looking for the unique. I ride my unicycle, or I bring my unicycle to class. I dress up. I have about 5 costumes I really like. I don't know why, but my students love my gangster costume. I hate my gangster costume. Feels like my shorts are going to fall off, and I hate wearing my hat crooked, and that bling is heavy, and I just hate that costume. But students will listen to every word I say when I'm wearing that gangster costume. I have my favorite costume is my Batman costume. I also have this great nerd costume that I found at Value Village. Oh my, it's so good. Anyway, so that's one way. But objects. Bring an object, just some object. When I was younger, we called it object lessons, and I've never heard it in the literature, but it's fantastic. Just any old object that doesn't belong in the classroom, all of a sudden the students are like, what? What's that about? You know? Anyway, you know how to spice up your lessons so that your students don't feel like Calvin. All right, now, please, in the chat box, I'm seeing great things. Keep going in the chat box. Here's some strategies that we all use. I hope that you wrote down a couple of strategies from that last list here. I'll go back to it. Let me give you that last list. I hope you wrote down a couple of things that you want to use more, or that you'd like to start using. But here we have strategies I'm pretty sure you all use, but I just want to point to them as really great ways to help struggling students, okay? So regular physical movement, it is gold. It is gold. Just they say that however old your student is, that's how many minutes before they need to do some physical movement. So if they're 6 years old, you can have them not move for 6 minutes, and then they need to move, right? All the way up to 20, because I can't sit for 60 minutes. Anyway, so I think it ends at about 20. So adults usually can pay attention for about 20 minutes, which means I'm about 3 times over your time limit here. So please, right now, go ahead, stand up, walk around, move, like the physical movement is gold. So we all do it, but hey, let's try to do it more often. And it doesn't have to be long, just short little stretches, just moving to a different group, just talking with a partner sometimes. One-on-one instruction I've mentioned, and so find ways to do that. You know how good that is. Find ways to do it. Send them to their centers, create centers, send them off to work, and then you can provide some one-on-one. Break that learning into small little chunks. I love doing a little exercise where, you take an orange and you try to eat the whole orange. You can't fit it in your mouth, but you break it into little segments, no problem. Brainstorming is really gold as well. Think, pair, share is, that's like a very trite strategy. We all do think, pair, share. Well, I was reflecting on my teaching one year, and I'm like, I haven't used think, pair, share for a long time, right? And so the thinking part really helps them find those dendrites that they've already grown. And then the pairing is a safe place to kind of share what they already know. And then you can have them learn from each other, the share part, right? We all do it. Group work, group work, group work, group work. Group work is gold. Oh my, I am very sorry. What that is my computer, and I can turn my volume anyway. So group work, the key to having them stay on task to me is accountability. There's a million ways to provide that accountability, and so consider that. Group work is fantastic. Keeping them on task is challenging. But it can be an awesome way for these struggling learners to learn from their peers. And of course, centers, those of you who are at the elementary level know all about centers. Those of you at secondary, try it. It is gold. It is awesome. You have them go into groups and learn things together at centers. And yes, it does take a fair bit of work on your part as a teacher to at the front end to prepare these centers where they can go and learn. But when I was a consultant, I was in a different classroom every day, looking at challenging students every day, a different classroom. And I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. And believe me, teachers who had centers were the good, the very, very good. Okay. Any other strategies? Please contribute them on the chat box. Cody, anything that stands out for you?
Lots of great ideas for bringing in objects or fun activities, food for science. There was one question with centers, and how do you group reluctant learners? They've tried pairing them with stronger learners or learners with similar skill sets and aren't having much success.
Yes, that can be challenging. Again, it's really not who they're with, it's what they're accountable for. And so that's what I find is the key. So there's lots of ways to make them accountable. One is to have a product that they have to produce as a group. And the product has to be contributed by your struggling learner as well as your really great learner. But you can have a whole group of struggling learners creating some sort of product that is, what they're accountable for. But it doesn't always have to be a product to have accountability in the group work. It can just be you being there. So put all your struggling learners in one group and you just use proximity even to kind of keep them on task. That's accountability. Another is, assessment. We're going to have an assessment based on, your work here, or there's a worksheet in your group that each of you individually has to do, but you're going to do this worksheet as a group. Things like that. To me, it's accountability. It's not who's in the group. All right, good question. Anything else, Cody?
That aside from just some great ideas in there, that's all for questions.
Yes, and I'm sad we don't have time to just kind of read all of them, but you can. So go ahead. If the child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should try teaching the way they learn, right? That is so powerful. Let's just try to teach the way they learn. That's easier said than done, I know, but let's figure out how they learn best. All right, number 3, we have student-specific learning strategies and accommodations. I love Carol Ann Tomlinson's work. It's getting a little old, but it's really great work on this.
And now I'm all the way.
Hey, we have one of your students just joined us. Isn't that great? Okay, so thanks, Cody, for taking care of that. I'm glad you're a master at Zoom. That's fantastic. Okay, so here's what Carol Ann Tomlinson has to say. Self-regulation procedures enhance strategy instruction for students who struggle to learn. Self-regulation is the key there. What kinds of strategies is she talking about? Well, goal setting, self-instruction, self-monitoring, self-evaluation. By the way, that's another way to make group work accountable, is evaluation of each other and of self. I always love doing that in group work. You do all this group work and then you have them evaluate each other and themselves. All right, these kinds of strategies, these learning strategies, not teaching, but learning strategies, should be taught explicitly. Well, sorry, she says explicitly taught in conjunction with strategy instruction for students who need them. All right, so what is she talking about? Let me give you some specific strategies. Teach them different learning strategies like mnemonics, the 5-finger rule, physical cues, peg words. Okay, so mnemonics, I think we all know. Roy G. Biv for the colors of the rainbow, BEDMAS for the orders of operation in math, right? Those are great mnemonics. But you can make your own up. I have, and I love making my own up. It's what got me through university. And then we have the 5-finger rule. I hope you all know it, but let me tell it. You teach students that they count the number of words they don't know on a given page they're reading. And as soon as there's 5 words on a given page that they are reading, they need to come to you because that reading is too high. If there's 5 words on a page they don't understand. But what a great way to teach them to self-monitor the reading material that they're trying to get through. All right. Physical cues, you teach all the different the land in Alberta. We have the plains and we go like this. We have mountains and we go like this. And we have the foothills and we stamp our feet. Those are physical cues, and the brain research is incredible on this because the the parietal lobe, this is parietal. Occipital is the back. Oh, what's the movement lobe? Cerebellum. The cerebellum is actually made up of different types of dendrites that don't prune. The rest of our brain, the dendrites, if we don't use them, they go away. Our movement dendrites, they do not go away. So guess what? If we attach learning to any movement at all, it doesn't go away. That's why we, can still ride a bike, we can still ski, those kinds of things. We can still walk, we can remember how to walk. Peg words. I don't know if you're familiar with peg word strategy, but Google it if you're not. I find it invaluable. 1 is a bun, 2 is a shoe, 3 is a tree, 4 is a door, and so on. And then when you're learning any list of things, the first thing you put it on your bun or in your bun, and the second thing you have a shoe on it or with it, and so there's something about visually seeing things that can help us learn lists really well. So peg words, if you don't already use them, but please, in the chat box, give us some other learning strategies where the students can do it themselves. Now, I was teaching learning strategies to students who were struggling. So my class was all struggling students. This wasn't at L.Y. Cairns. This was at another school. I was teaching them learning strategies. I was trying to give them support and connect with them. And guess what? To a student, I don't know, didn't matter whether it was a learning disability, a cognitive disability, autism might be a little different, or being on the autism spectrum, is how I should say it. That might be a little bit different, but for sure ADHD, just almost every single student I saw come through my learning strategies class struggled with organizing themselves. Isn't that true? Like you can see a student, especially in the secondary level, walking down the hall with things falling out of their arms, and they're a struggling student. As soon as you see someone who struggles with some of those executive functioning, I don't know what it is, but many of these struggling students struggle with executive functioning. So I decided I was going to leave this position as a learning strategies teacher. And so we had interviews, and we picked 5 great candidates, and we interviewed the 5 great candidates. One candidate said, we asked all 5 candidates, what's the first thing you would do in the learning strategies class? And one candidate said, well, I'd help them get organized. I'd teach them some systems where they can keep track of the assignments that are due. They can keep track of where the subjects, where to keep different subjects, where to keep their materials, et cetera, et cetera. Well, guess who we hired? That teacher who knew, number 1, get them organized. Give them constant feedback, like just feedback. And by that, I mean negative and positive, right? Because if they're struggling, I think the positive is even more important than the negative, right? They need to know when they're being successful. Help them set goals. Provide accommodations. Sometimes they just need accommodations. I don't know if you've had this experience, but I have, where a student has struggled. I've given them an accommodation as simple as a fidget toy or a ball to sit on. And all of a sudden, or movement every few minutes in a movement box, and then all of a sudden their performance improves dramatically. And so I highly recommend finding accommodations. And I've put a whole list of about 50 accommodations in available to upload, and somebody put it in the chat box too. So you have all kinds of options for accommodations. We all know about the PAT accommodations, or quiet space, more time, having a recording of the exam. But there's so many more than those PAT, and you need to be giving accommodations if they're going to qualify for provincial exam accommodations, right? So assistive technology, Chromebooks, where we all have them these days. I remember the day when they were gold. So what does AMAP mean? Josh asks. What are you talking about, Bateman? AMAP. I knew you would ask that, Josh. And so I have a little meme on that. Here we go. As much as possible. AMAP. I was hoping you'd be like, what is that? AMAP. As soon as possible. No, as much as possible. There we go. So what I'm saying is provide that feedback as much as possible. I'm going to use AMAP again. Here's just a screenshot basically of the list that is provided for you, both in the chat and on Sched. Josh, anything in the chat box that we should hear about?
All right, so for that, lots of good strategies, making cards and matching up definitions, matching up classes with younger grades. That was the previous one. Yeah, that's about all.
All right, 2 minutes for classroom management. Well, all you have to do is everything that we've talked about, and guess what? Your class will be managed. There, done. Okay, we're done, Cody. No, we're not, because I have some other ideas. All right. Sometimes I'm not sure if they have a learning disability or I have a teaching disability. Yeah. Anyway, so what classroom management strategies are effective? Sometimes we imagine ourselves like the top and what we feel is at the bottom, Well, here's what I find really effective. I greet them at the door. Now, we all know that. We all do that. We've all done that. But do we do it every single class? I have done so much anecdotal research on this. I have found that when I don't, it is much, much, much more difficult to reach those struggling students. And when I do, I create this rapport with them. And I hope you've all seen that meme. I should have put it in here, where this teacher gives the student a choice, and they decide if they want a high five, if they want an elbow, if they want a handshake, or if they want a hug, right? Post your lesson outline. These struggling students, they need to know where you've gone and where you're going. So put that outline on the board and work through it. And these really fantastic teachers will even have some sort of a regular magnetic thing to go by what we're doing currently or something like that. Now, the Do It Now board, I encourage you to actually Google that if you don't have a Do It Now board. This is getting them on task as soon as they get into your classroom. So put them on task right as they go in, and something to do as soon as they go in. When they get a little older, you can even make a regular journal entry as soon as they come in on a question that you have, right? Which is what I do basically 8th through university. Even in university, I use the Do It Now. They have to, as soon as they walk in my class, they have to answer a question. All right. They need to know what's going to happen if their behavior is inappropriate, and they need to not just hear about it, they need to see it. Body language, body language, body language. I just can't say enough about that as much as possible. There isn't a teacher on this planet. There isn't a teacher in this session that couldn't use body language just a little bit more. Collaborative problem solving is a method that's talked about by Ross Green. You can also Google that. Humorous, low-key, non-confrontational, How about calling parents with something positive? Anybody who's done that knows the power. It just takes time and energy, I know. And then procedural and organizational strategies. I'm going to point you to a book on that one. The book is called The Classroom Management Book, and it has all kinds of ideas for having a procedure for each of these. So you have a procedure, and you all have procedures in your class, but hey, how about more procedures so that you do less? Remember, I said less stressful. And that way you don't have people putting up their hand and you think they have this great answer, and then, can I go to the bathroom? You know. All right. Treat them as they are, and they'll stay that way. Treat them as they can be and are capable of being, and they will become that way. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. All right, that's me. Thanks. Sorry to go 2 minutes over. Please give me some feedback. I don't often get very good feedback from convention sessions. And so I have a website. Please go to that website, and there's a form there. I would just love it. Thanks for all of your thank yous too. Take care.